Ladies and gentlemen, something truly mind-numbingly and awe-inspiringly stupid, and yet at the same time sort of magical, has happened. And I'm going to get into it right away. As you can tell from the title, I am now expected to pay 110% in taxes from everything I earn online. So let me just be perfectly crystally clear here for you. That means that if I earn $100 or €100 or whatever your regional equivalent is, today, I will need to pay 110 in taxes. Yes, it is now officially damaging for me, for my personal finances, to earn money and to work online. Now, you might think, well, hold on, Juggernaut, surely that's some kind of mistake, surely that's just a technicality of some sorts, there are some ways around it. But no, not really. If I do not want to, you know, end up in trouble, and I don't want to avoid taxes, and I want to be a sensible individual, and don't want to have trouble with the law, officially, as of today, I pay 110% in taxes. How the hell has that happened? Well, let's get into it. So, as you may or may not be aware, YouTube is changing its tax policies from, well, I'm not sure exactly from when, but soon. And basically, the tax policies now mean that you need to pay the United States government up to 30% in taxes for all your earnings from YouTube. Be that the YouTube channel memberships payment, which are, I mean, those things are more like donations than they are an actual service provided to or by anyone, but I guess it is a service that YouTube provides me, so technically I guess I see the point, but anyways, me viewing them as donations doesn't change much in the grand scheme of things, so I'll refrain from personal comments, though I do really think those are more like donations than, you know, you buying a service of some sort, but I guess technically you do unlock emotes, so via that small token of a service, I suppose it is no longer technically a donation. Anyways, this also applies to AdSense, which is, for most people on YouTube, at least I believe it is for most people, the primary source of their income. This is ad money, right? Whenever you see an ad on my channel, the money goes through AdSense, right? Companies pay money to Google to have their ads placed in various YouTube videos, and when they play, Google gets their cut, I get my cut for having made the video that the ad was played in, and everyone's happy. Furthermore, if you have some type of premium service like YouTube Red, which I believe is still called YouTube Red, right? Anyways, if you have some type of premium service like that, the same applies pretty much, except you don't get to see ads, but the money you paid to YouTube gets distributed between the company itself and the creators. So, let's say you paid $20 a month, well, depending on who you watch, but let's say you exclusively watch my content, maybe $5 or $10 will go to me and the rest will go to YouTube. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are for these things, and whether it's $5, $10, $15, $18, or $2, I really don't know, and it never really bothered me that much. It's just YouTube's own financial thing. I can't influence it in any way, shape, or form, and there's literally nothing I can do about it, so I sort of went along with it. Now, however, there is going to be a 25% tax, or sorry, up to 30%, for me it's most likely going to be 25%, tax on everything I earn from YouTube. So after all the calculations are done, after YouTube takes its cut, I pay 25% on that. Which, again, let's use simple round numbers here. Let's say I earn €100 this month, 25% of it goes to the US government. Even though I'm not a US citizen, and even though Google pays taxes, it is a company from the United States of America, that pays taxes to the United States of America government. And yet I'm going to have to pay taxes to the US as well from those earnings that I earn. See, okay, so on a sort of moral level, the idea of taxes is you deduct a part of your earnings in order to pay for goods and utilities that the whole community can use. Public transportation, healthcare, America, public transportation, healthcare, education, military spending, police spending, all sorts of things, right? This is where your tax money goes. Except not in my case. In my case, it just goes straight to the US government's pocket, and I'm never going to see any of it. Ever, because I'm not a US citizen. But, Juggernaut, you are using a US firm. Surely that, or a US company, surely that, you know, makes some sense. Well, it does. But that company pays taxes already. It's just insane that I pay taxes for it as well. I mean, think of it like this. Imagine you had to pay taxes to the Chinese government every time you buy something that was partially, in some way, shape, or form, manufactured in China. Yeah, all of a sudden that sounds quite insane, doesn't it? But anyways, that doesn't get us to 110%. How does that work? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the US government is not the only government that wants a percentage of my earnings, and, well, of your donations as well, I suppose, since I do get those on a regular basis every month. Oh, no, 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 no. My government wants 80% of them. You see the problem? The US is going to take 25 to 30%, and my government is going to take 80%. Now,
if it weren't for the caravan,
Juggernaut,
I'd have to close
that
the
doesn't
shop.
make it 110%, because if the US government takes 25%, then your government will take 80% of what's left. Yeah, no, they won't. Well, we don't know, is the thing. So, let me take you on a little bit of a history tour, if you will, of this wonderful government and its current ruling party. Namely, a few months ago, it's almost a year now, the government announced a new tax plan by which all freelancers and everyone employed in the IT sector now has to pay 80% taxes 5 years retroactively. That means if you've earned $100 over the past 5 years, you need to pay $80 right now to the government. Except you haven't earned $100 over the course of 5 years, that wouldn't be much of a career, would it? People have earned a lot more. In fact, in this beautiful country of mine, saying it only with 50% sarcasm or so, IT sector is actually really, really profitable. Sure, you work for a lot less than a programmer in France or Great Britain or Germany. You get paid less, but the quality of work that you do generally seems to be around the same, depending on what your job is. I believe one of the most common jobs here are graphic designers. So you don't exactly code the Google algorithm, but you make logos for companies worldwide, right? Or you create different graphical designs that they need for different things. You design their websites and so on and so forth. And yes, I know technically that's a different thing, but that sort of vague area is where most people are employed in from my perspective. I don't have any statistical data to back this up because there is no statistical data. Which leads me on to the sort of primary problem that we have here. You see, my country's laws, but not only laws, but the whole system, the bureaucracy behind it, the entire thing is horribly out of date when it comes to taxes.
Heads up.
Now, what do I mean by horribly out of date? I mean 18th century out of date. Our tax laws, bureaucracy, and infrastructure does not believe the internet exists. Oh yes. Up until a few months ago, the internet was never in consideration when it comes to taxes. This means that if every month you get $2,000 in your PayPal account, the government is completely blind to it, and if you just pick that money off a bank somewhere, or you transfer it to your bank account or whatever, or you transfer it to your credit card, the government is still equally oblivious to it because, well, they're sort of stuck in the 18th century when it comes to that sort of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against taxing the IT sector something, because, let's be honest, they do use the aforementioned education, public transportation, healthcare, and so on, and, you know, unlike the US, we actually have a healthcare system, which, you know, I'm not gonna say anything too positive about it, but occasionally it works. On a good day. Let's say you are a million times better off paying some private clinic to do whatever the hell you need to get done than relying on the government-funded public healthcare system, but, you know, it's there. It's an option, especially if you have, like, a mild irritation of some sort, like a flu or whatever, and yeah, it's really cool to be able to go to a doctor and grab some medicine and not pay anything. That's good, and people do that. And now, with the global pandemic and everything, the government... sorry, I'm stumbling over words because I'm playing and talking at the same time. The government-funded healthcare system is actually turning out to be, well, a lot more important than we thought, and pretty darn decent, to be honest. I mean, granted, they have virtually stopped doing everything else that isn't pandemic-related, and it takes months, if not years, to get anything else examined. In most cases, I have personal examples of this in my own family, but, you know, they do something, at the very least, and the IT sector paying for at least a little bit of that is, to me, acceptable. Hell, I'm in that sector technically speaking, kind of. And, you know, I'll be alright with paying like 10%, 15%, but not 110 or 115%. No, that's ridiculous. And yet, that's where we currently are, or no, that's where I currently am. Now, this is where I would usually say but, and then, you know, somehow find a silver lining in all of this, but there isn't much of a silver lining. The only sort of glimmer of hope that I have is that over the course of the last year, where this mandatory 80% 5 years retroactively tax policy has been officially put in place, they have not managed to force a single individual in the entire country to pay this tax. Because it is A, absurd, and B, extraordinarily tricky to phrase and put into action. Why so? Well, like I said, 17th century system and bureaucracy, right? Let's say I'm a YouTuber, right? I do this for a living. I don't, not really, I mean, but let's say for argument's sake that I do this for a living. Am I in the IT sector? Am I in the information technologies sector? Well, common sense in this country would sort of say yes. You earn money online, ergo you are in the IT sector. That's how it's defined. Yes, it's not exactly the greatest definition, but, you know, we're getting somewhere. Okay, first of all, prove it. Prove that I earn money online. Well, you get money every month in your bank account from a foreign company. Aha. Okay, cool. Prove it that I'm doing that because it's my job, and that I'm doing that as an employee. Problematic. They might reach out to that company and ask, but freelancers aren't employed anywhere. And this is where the bureaucracy of our system sort of falls apart, because if they aren't employed anywhere, it's now all of a sudden very tricky to force them to pay anything on a legal basis. Our laws are so out of date that they say, well, he doesn't work at a factory, you can't touch the factory, and you can't call the factory owner, so is he really employed? But those situations are sort of being handled as we speak. What about me? I don't have a bank account. And the money I get, at least this has been the case in the last few months. Back in the day it used to be different again, because back in the day the YouTube payment system worked differently, and my MCN used to pay me, and so on and so forth, which I will talk about them for a little bit as well, because they sort of hung us out to dry, more or less. A large portion of us content creators, but I sort of understand them as well at the same time. Anyways, I get a check every month, and I cash in that check at the local bank. And it takes a astounding 40 days for me to actually get the money back, because the check needs to go to Italy for some reason, because that's the closest thing we have to, that's the closest place that can actually turn it into actual money. Silly, but you know what, it gets the job done, and I don't mind waiting 40 days. I used to wait 30 days anyway for payments. Waiting 40 now honestly doesn't make that big of a difference to me. Well, what are you going to do now? Because my personal information is nowhere to be found. I mean, it's to be found in the Google AdSense form, and it's technically not even on that check, right, as far as I know. It just says, like, my first and last name, and just some generic information that you don't really necessarily that you can't really necessarily connect to me. How the hell are you going to prove it that it's actually me that needs to pay that? So the government has resorted to scare tactics, frightening people in letters that they send them. Pay us 80% now, you do the calculations, pay us or you're going to prison. Pay us or we're going to have to take legal action. And some people have decided, you know what, this isn't worth my while. I've made a tiny bit of cash back in 2005, or back, well, okay, that's ages ago, back in 2015 or back in 2017 or whatever. I'm just going to pay whatever they ask me to, and I'm just going to not bother with it and, you know, just avoid the whole drama out of my life. But most people that do IT work for a living are like, yeah, cool story, bro. Until you actually get new laws in place that can do something about this, you're going to have a hard time legally phrasing it so that we have to pay you. Simply because the laws don't exist. Now, it's about this time that I need to confess that simply by mentioning this, I am putting myself at, well, not negligible risk. Because now I'm sort of incriminating myself to an extent, right? I never said that I won't pay my taxes, or anything along those lines, but I'm kind of incriminating myself because I'm saying that I am a part of the IT industry, I do this work and so on and so forth, and, well, you know, I don't know what this video might, if this video will come to haunt me in, at some point in the future, but the thing is, although the government technically is currently having problems legally forcing me to pay what I quote-unquote owe in taxes, how I can owe something 5 years retroactively starting today is a little bit beyond me, because isn't it one of the most fundamental human rights that new laws cannot apply retroactively? In that, if I do something today and tomorrow it becomes a crime, I cannot answer for it tomorrow because it wasn't a crime when I did it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm no legal expert, but as far as I know, that's one of the human rights, right? And yet, well, apparently it doesn't apply for taxes. I mean, of course it doesn't, what did I expect, but it is what it is. Bottom line is, I'm not entirely sure how this situation is going to be resolved, but two things, my dear viewer, are eternal. Death and taxes. The two constants of the universe. starting from now to the heat death of the aforementioned. There is always going to be death and taxes. And it just so happens to be that my taxes are 110% starting today. I will keep you updated, probably in a community post, so if you're interested in how the situation goes, I encourage you to subscribe. Oh, that's very sell out of me, to be honest with you, but hey, it does help out quite a bit. Anyways, point being, I'll probably update you in a community post how the things are going and what exactly is the official amount that I owe every month in terms of taxes. I'm assuming, though, that it will take a little bit of time for the whole thing to get processed, both on YouTube's side and especially on my government's side. So, yeah, it's going to be all quiet on the Western Front for a while, but yeah.
Again, I have survived the hostilities. Someone is nearby. Perhaps they are friendly.
Alright, sorry. I was very low on health, I needed to concentrate.
Oh no!
Anyways, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and well, I guess, if nothing else, I provided some form of entertainment and maybe even uplifting news for you, because don't get me wrong, 110% in taxes is ridiculous and seems like bottom line slavery in many, well, depending on sort of how you take it, but in some way, it sort of seems like slavery in 2020, and yet at the same time, if you wanted to complain that your tax situation is terrible, well, I can pretty much guarantee it. Not that I have it worse than you, because I don't know what your situation is, and honestly, who knows what's going to happen nowadays with everything going on, but I can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be hard-pressed to find examples that are worse than this. That's pretty much everything. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go and reconsider my options about moving somewhere, or, no, I don't know.
Enemy detected.
Doing something else. How fitting an ending to the video. Have fun, take care, and bye-bye.